Locked On Podcast Network presents Locked On Sports Today.
The Dallas Mavericks soldier on, and literally everyone is surprised. Also, the Bulls are really tired of facing the Heat in the postseason, and it's time for TJ Watt to make more money, but not from the Steelers. Today's episode is brought to you by FanDuel. Right now, new FanDuel customers can get $250 in bonus bets if your first $5 bet wins.
I'm Peter Bukowski, starting your day with the can't-miss stories and biggest debates in sports. You're Locked On Sports Today.
Searching all major sports. Found.
Let's start with the biggest story.
Dallas Mavericks aren't done yet in a tumultuous year. They are a win away from making it past the play-in and to the playoffs.
But Nico wanted to build this team on the back of a defense, and on the back of a defense that could do something special. And Anthony Davis is that type of player that can come in and make a defense special like that. And I just think that in this game, you saw that defense in a really big way. Anthony Davis' stat line offensively will not stand out a ton. He had 27 points. He led the Mavericks, 9 of 23. We'll talk about that in a minute. But 3 blocks, 9 boards, and he was the menace all over the place on defense. He's the thing that kind of makes it work, where he just makes your defense go from solid to great, where he can go and do anything, and he can run around, and he can close off driving lanes, he can close the gaps, he can do all kinds of things on defense to make it really tough for the Kings to have no driving lanes, to not get to the rim at all, and there's a lid on the rim. The Kings only took 16 shots at the rim, and they made 10 of them. And only 16 shots. The Mavs had the exact same numbers, by the way, but we'll get into why the Mavs won this game. But for the Kings, they couldn't get anything else going. And Anthony Davis' defense helped lead this team to a win. You'll start with Anthony Davis. I think he was the tone setter on that end. I think that he did a lot of things in this game to help the Mavs win, and the Mavs won on the back of their defense. The second quarter was the catalyst on offense. We'll get to that with Clay in a second. But the defense was massive, and I think for the Mavericks, it's a new identity. It's a new dawn. It's a new day. It's a new time for the Mavericks, right? And for those that have said, all right, let's move on, let's move on, let's move on. This is what you're moving on to, a defense. And a defense that can win you a game like this. When it's a do-or-die game, you got to come in. They've got better offensive players on the other end, in my opinion. Zach LaVine, DeMar DeRozan, Sabonis at times. You've got those guys on the other end, and the Mavs just totally turned it off, turned the water off. The Kings only scored 106 points, and there was a giveaway at the end of the game where they go, thanks to the Kings getting to 100 points, you win, blah, 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 something. And I had to look at the scoreboard, and I looked up and said, wait, hold on, the Kings scored 100 points? And they got to it at the end there because, and I didn't realize that because the Kings had not scored very much at all in this game. The Mavs held them to just 19 points in that second quarter. That was a crucial quarter. 33 in the third quarter when the Kings were really trying to make their comeback, and that's when DeMar DeRozan was really going off, and his mid-range stuff was really going, and his mid-range stuff, which he's just one of the best in NBA history at making those mid-range shots, that was really going for him. But they only got 33 points, and he had 16 of them. Nobody else really came to play. Zach LaVine, 20 points, but we'll get into his game because I wasn't very impressed with what he did in 44 minutes either. Sabonis, only 11 points. And you had a Kings team that their bread and butter has been offense. Now, they've been really inconsistent, and there's been a lot of issues, and this is why it's a 9-10 game. But for the Kings to only score 106 points, have a 109 offensive rating, which is awful, which is really, really bad, the Mavericks had a great defensive game. And it starts on defense. And that is the thing that is going to be the Mavs' calling card. If you want to move on, you want to talk about what the Mavericks are now, it's a defensive team. They're going to do that. The Kings only had 12% free throw rate, which is really, really low. They only took 15 free throws. Maybe the refs. There are a lot of Kings fans here, I'm sure, have a problem with the way this game was officiated at times. But I think the Mavericks just turned the water off. They turned the hose off on the Kings. They stopped driving lanes. They said, all right, you're going to have to take a ton of mid-range shots, or you can take a couple of threes here and there, but you're not getting to the rim. We've got a back line of Anthony Davis who can go all over the place and stop you with his wingspan, or we got Lively and Gafford back there too. And you're not going to get any easy stuff. And the Mavs didn't turn the ball over that much. 9 turnovers for the Mavericks. So you're not getting fast break points on the Mavericks that much. And the Mavs took advantage with their defense. Absolutely awesome. You love to see a defensive team like that, and that's what the Mavericks are. That's their new identity. They've embraced their new identity, and it won them this game in the play-in. And maybe you didn't want them to win this game in the play-in, but they did. And they did it on the backs of their defense, and I'm sure Nico Harrison is smiling somewhere watching how well this team played on defense, everybody included. It wasn't just on their defense, though. Their offense in the second quarter, 44 points. When's the last time this Mavericks team scored 44 points in a quarter? It feels like it hasn't been very often. But Klay Thompson was absolutely awesome in that quarter. That second quarter, he came out firing, and it was absolutely awesome to see Klay Thompson just go off. If you think about Klay Thompson and you think about what he's been through, and you think about him as a player, you think all the way back to last season where Klay Thompson was 0 for 10 from 3 in this very building, the Golden One Center that I'm in right now. He was 0 for 10 in a playing game where he played with the Warriors, and he was going through going through that game. When the Mavericks were going to sign Klay Thompson, or were they going to trade for Klay Thompson, over and over again, I just kept seeing over and over again all these comments saying, over 10, over 10, over 10. Just the slander and reminding over and over again that Klay Thompson was over 10 in this game. For him to get that kind of redemption was absolutely awesome to see that from him. He was giddy after that second quarter. He got 16 points, and he was skipping into the locker room. Not figuratively. No, he was literally skipping up and down, bounding into the locker room. So excited. There's a couple times he was amping the crowd up and just throwing his hands up in the air, and he loved every minute of it.
Stay up to date all year on the Dallas Mavericks by subscribing to Locked On Sports Today and Locked On Mavericks on your favorite podcast app and on YouTube. You're Locked On Sports Today. Coming up, the Bulls are just really tired of seeing the Heat in the postseason. Before we get to that, the NBA's last 2-minute report strikes again. The NBA playoffs are here, and FanDuel is giving new customers an incredible way to get in on the action right now. When you join FanDuel and place your first $5 bet, you'll get $250 in bonus bets if your bet wins. I love how FanDuel makes betting so easy, whether it's picking my favorite team or diving into player props. From 3-pointers to steals to assists, there are so many ways to bet your favorite player props. Plus, after the game tips off, you can even combine live prop bets into a same-game parlay for a chance to win big. The Heat and the Hawks are close on the point spread tonight. FanDuel has the Hawks favored at home, but only just so. Atlanta's laying 1.5 points. The total may be the best play here, though, as the over-under is set at 218.5, and I'm feeling the under on this one. Don't miss out. Head to FanDuel.com and claim your $250 in bonus bets today. NBA last 2-minute report is here to comfort the Grizzlies fans, or maybe not. The NBA on Wednesday said officials made 2 incorrect calls in the final 37 seconds of Golden State's 121-116 play-in victory against the Memphis Grizzlies on Tuesday night. A foul on Golden State point guard Brandon Podziemski should not have been called, and the Grizzlies should have been given the ball with just over 7 seconds left. The Warriors got the win in the 7th seed, while the Grizzlies have to play again on Friday night for their playoff lives. On the diamond, Aaron Judge was the difference with the bat, and Cody Bellinger was the difference with the glove as the Yankees swept the Royals.
Defense being a huge catalyst, Cody Bellinger with a diving catch to end the game for the Yankees. They're going to win their games this year. Low scoring with great bullpen pitching and phenomenal defense. It's exactly what happened in the game against the Kansas City Royals. You get a big home run from Aaron Judge to reclaim his lead for the top of the home run chart in the league this year, plus Clark Schmidt returning and giving the Yankees a really solid start, exactly what they need. He's going to be a catalyst if they continue to win games the rest of this year. A sweep of the Kansas City Royals as they head to their home away from home in George Steinbrenner Field down in Tampa Bay. You can catch our opinions on all of it on Locked On Yankees, Monday through Friday, every single day on all of your streaming platforms and YouTube.
And the Twins walked off a win in extra innings against the Mets.
Don't call it a comeback. Well, actually, that's exactly what you could call it. Twins win 4-3. Didn't come back in the game, but they're coming back from a rough start. This is Brandon Warren with your Locked On Twins post-game minute. Twins record no longer resembling a Twin Cities area code. They are now 7-12, and while that's not exciting, they have taken 2 of 3 from the Mets, who are now 11-7 and leaving town. Twins stay on the NL East front with a trip to Atlanta. Big highlights in the game, Byron Buxton scoring the winning run as the Manfred man in the 10th inning. And get this, Ty France 0 for his last 12 and 0 for 4 with 3 strikeouts coming into his 10th inning plate appearance, and he drives in the run. Baseball is a beautiful game. Again, Twins off on Thursday and in Atlanta starting on Friday. We'll be covering it fully. Locked On Twins.
The Chicago Bulls saw their season come to a disappointing end at the hands of the Miami Heat in the 9-10 playoff game. Here to talk about that with me are the hosts of Locked On Bulls, Hayes and Pat. the designer. Now, Hayes, I want to throw to you first. This was a tough game overall. The Bulls, not really a fight put up by them in this one. Where did this get away from Chicago, and does this kind of encapsulate what their season was?
Yeah, in a lot of ways it did, because it's the promise, right? Like, this got left from the opening tip-off. Like, that's literally from the opening tip-off. Defensively, the Bulls just haven't had it. Since the All-Star break, the Bulls have been a pretty solid defensive team. Not amazing or anything, but solid enough to where their offense was able to get out and transition naturally because of how the way that they were communicated and connected defensively. And you could tell very early on that they just did not have that in this game. And then their inability to hit shots came in after that, even though they shot pretty decently percentage-wise in the first half. So I think really the defense, and they just weren't prepared for the Miami Heat to play at their pace and for them to hit shots at the rate that they did. And at that point, they just crumbled.
Now, Pat, when you talk about this roster and what you see for a long-term vision, I know that the Bulls have a lot of changes they need to make. In your eyes, you have players on this roster like Kobe White, Josh Giddey. They moved on from Zach LaVine at the trade deadline to try to get some more pieces. How many of these guys are actually long-term fits for this roster, and how different could this Bulls roster look next year?
Listen, I think that Josh Giddey, in my mind, right, in my mind and AK's mind are very different minds. they just are. But I would love to have Josh Giddey on this team. I would love to have Modest Buzelis on this team. You're probably moving on from Nikola Vucevic in a trade scenario no matter what, because it feels like Vuce has been told multiple times, like, we're going to move on from you, and then he continues to be on the team. I think his play in today's game kind of is indicative of where his mindset is moving forward with this. Kobe White is the one question that I do have, though. We were just talking about that over on the Locked On Bulls podcast, where, to me, this is now the third play-in game where you haven't seen Kobe White show up versus the Miami Heat. Listen, the Miami Heat are not the pinnacle of defenses that are going to play against Kobe White, and he hasn't shown up in those moments. I know he's been great in certain scenarios, but I would explore the opportunity with the second half of the season that Kobe White has had to say, hey, look, I love Giddey. I love Modest. Is Kobe really a part of this future? And if I can get better in return for Kobe White, I might move on from Kobe White here.
Yeah, it makes sense. And I'm curious to hear both your thoughts on this one. So, Hayes, I'll throw it to you first. And then, Pat, if you just want to piggyback of what Hayes says here, I caught some of the your post-game show, and he had a conversation about Billy Donovan and what the future looks like. Is the future head coach of the Chicago Bulls, is it Billy Donovan, or do they move on and try to find another option? You have intriguing veteran coaches available, like a Taylor Jenkins or a Michael Malone. So, Hayes, I'll throw to you first. Pat, you can go after. What is the future of Billy Donovan in Chicago?
See, that's where there's two different things, right? Should they move on from Billy Donovan is a question, right? I think the answer to that is yes. When you look at the fact that our record's gotten worse each year, this is the first year that we've stayed even basically since Billy Donovan's been there. But will they move on from Billy Donovan? As a Bulls fan and somebody really connected to this franchise, Michael Reinsdorf or Jerry Reinsdorf are very attached to Billy Donovan. So I don't expect them to move on, even though they should move on from Billy Donovan.
Yeah, I agree. Listen, I've been saying Billy Donovan shouldn't have been brought in here. That's been my take from the entire time. But I think there's a lot of that is put on Billy that the failures go to, that I would look at the players and say, hey, step up in those moments. But the one thing that I cannot overlook is the fact that there's not been success here. And the one thing about Eric Spoelstra, no matter the team, success seems to follow him around. And that's the one part for me where I don't know about Mike from Denver, right? But if I were to go a Taylor Jenkins situation, I would love that for the Bulls. I just don't know if that's where AK and Jerry Reinsdorf and Michael Reinsdorf are going to go.
All right, I have one more question, because I think this Bulls team is so fascinating, especially with how they've been trying to compete. They bring in Zach LaVine, they bring in DeMar DeRozan, they make the trade for Vucevic all those years ago. But this year in particular, it just felt like something was off the whole year, and you didn't really have like that championship caliber roster, even though it felt like they were trying in some ways. Hayes, I'll go to you first again, then Pat, you can follow up. What is one word to describe this Bulls season?
Man, conflicting. This was a very conflicting season by the Bulls. Started off very disappointing, finished very promising until the play-in where it ended disappointing again. But like the bits and pieces that you see, like Josh Giddey, him having the best stretch of his career here, all those type of things feel really, really good. But at the same time, I have my doubts on how much is this front office really ready to capitalize off of it and move off certain players or coaches that they need to.
Hayes, when conflicting, I would go deceiving on both ends, right? Deceiving on the one end that I think there are players who are on this team that are going to get scrutiny that I wouldn't put it on, right? Like Modest Buzelis. He's a rookie. He's figuring it out. He's learning. Josh Giddey is a guy who has shown out when he finally got the opportunity. The Kobe Whites, the Patrick Williams, the guys who have had hot games, but maybe not the hot season. Those are the people that I would say on both ends of the spectrum have been very deceiving to the Chicago Bulls.
Stay up to date all year on the Chicago Bulls by subscribing to Locked On Sports Today and Locked On Bulls on your favorite podcast app and on YouTube. Coming up, TJ Watt deserves a big payday, but it shouldn't be the Steelers who give it to him. Scaling your business requires the right expertise at the right time. With Upwork, you can find specialized freelancers in marketing, development, design, and more. Experts ready to help you take your business to the next level. Upwork gives businesses flexibility by connecting them with top freelance talent across multiple industries, including IT, AI, web development, and marketing. Whether you need extra hands for a project or a long-term partner, Upwork makes hiring simple and affordable. Posting a job is free and simple, and within a day, you will have multiple qualified candidates to choose from. And you can create cost-effective growth for your company instead of hiring full-time. Upwork helps find affordable top-tier freelancers to scale your business efficiently. Visit Upwork.com right now and post your job for free. That's UPWORK.com to connect with top talent and grow your business today. TJ Watt has been the heart and soul of the Pittsburgh Steelers and deserves a raise, but as Locked On NFL hosts Tyler Rowland and Michelle Madju discuss, that raise shouldn't come from the Steelers.
I think TJ Watt deserves the pay and the contract. I think he's the best edge rusher in the league, even with his down year last year. I think that had more to do with injury, but not by the Steelers. I think that'll be a shock to some people. I am a massive Steelers fan. That's my diehard team. TJ Watt is the best part of this team by far over the last few years, especially. Is the only shining spot. But again, the Steelers have not won a single playoff game with TJ Watt. And that's not TJ Watt's fault. But he can't do enough to carry this team to even close to a playoff win. I mean, they get destroyed every wild card game. Like this team needs a rebuild. I know Mike Tomlin never will, but they should not be paying a 30-something-year-old TJ Watt $40 million a year when you're not even close to winning. You don't even have a quarterback. There's no quarterback on this roster. They need to trade him, and I think the Lions should be calling up and trading for him.
Man, that would be an excellent fit. I love the Lions as a fit. That's a great point there. I'm totally with you. Look, I know they've made a lot of trades already this offseason, so maybe it's off the table, but it's clear that they're going all in now. The Washington Commanders. That's a team who, also out of the AFC, just like the Lions, which I think makes it more likely. It's unlikely sometimes that these teams are going to trade big-time players within the conference and face the potential of playing them later in the playoffs and stuff like that. It's just such an embarrassment for the franchise. And in a vacuum, you'd love to say, well, who cares about embarrassment and PR and how you're viewed? Like, do the right thing for the team. But that's not how human beings operate. We always think of the optics of the decisions that we're making when we make them right or wrong. But I think that the Washington Commanders, they need a top-tier edge. They trade for Laramie Tunsil. They trade for Deebo Samuel. I get you could say, nope, they're not doing it. But if you're going to do all that, you might as well go all in. And TJ Watt is still a confirmed great player who can elevate your defense. I love the Lions. I love the Commanders too.
I think this is a really interesting topic of conversation because we know TJ Watt has been one of the most dominant pass rushers in the NFL and someone who is really one of the heartbeats, if not the heartbeat, of the Steelers defense. But I think when you're talking about the extension not coming from Pittsburgh, TJ Watt is 30 years old right now. He will be 31 by the time the season ends this upcoming year. I think there's still an opportunity for Pittsburgh to sign him to one more extension. Now, I don't think that it should be a 6-year deal or a 5-year deal. Maybe that's what TJ Watt asks for, and it's a different conversation. But for me, you look at what TJ Watt's deal was this past go round. It was a 4-year deal, $112 million. If you give him something similar to that with some outs after that 3rd year, will TJ Watt be the same player at 34, 35 that he will be or has been in the past or even now? There'll be some level of slowdown. But Pittsburgh, I think Watt is too valuable to them right now to lose him. I don't know what that defense looks like without him. So I think that, yes, if you're talking about lucrative 5-6 year contract extension for TJ Watt, you're probably only getting 1 to 2, maybe 3, maybe 4 years out of TJ Watt. But that's the uncertain factor where maybe going younger with Alex Highsmith, with some of the other younger pass rushers on that roster, and you can delegate out some of that money elsewhere. That does make sense. And I 100% agree with that notion. But TJ Watt still has a lot left in the tank. I know there have been some injury concerns over the last handful of seasons, but to me, I just feel like Pittsburgh is a team that really goes, that defense goes as TJ Watt goes. And while they have players that can replace him, there's no truly replacing TJ Watt on that defense. So I think it's circumstantial. If you can get TJ Watt under contract for 3 to 4 years at maybe 25, 26 million, even $30 million per season, I would do that because I think you can structure it so it's a backloaded deal with an out before the final season. So you're not on the hook for maybe all that money. But if it is 5 to 6 years, I think that might be the line that the Steelers have to draw. Plus, you do know that you can probably get a haul for him in a trade, and those picks are probably major, major assets. Athletes Unlimited Softball League named Ken Ang as its commissioner Wednesday, entrusting the league's expansion this summer and beyond to the trailblazing baseball executive who was the first female general manager in Major Men's North America sports. Under Ang, the Miami Marlins made the playoffs in back-to-back years. She was never fully appreciated, though, as when she attempted to secure a raise, she was asked to take a step back and cede to an incoming president of baseball operations. She chose to resign when that happened. Here's hoping she continues to kill it in her new post. If you're catching this episode after hearing your favorite Locked On show, make sure to subscribe to Locked On Sports Today on YouTube or wherever you get your podcasts so you never miss an episode. Also, if you're a new subscriber to Locked On Sports Today, we're here for you with the biggest stories in sports every day. Coming up, who will be the biggest surprise come draft day? So at least until tomorrow, stay Locked On Sports Today.
Locked On Podcast Network presents Locked On Sports Today.
For more episodes of Locked On Sports Today, go to our video on demand. Click on Sports at the top of your screen. There, you'll find past episodes of Locked On Sports Today, plus other Locked On shows on demand.